I'm a trophy husband, and I feel like I'm in a dream. 4 years ago, my wife handed me a contract, literally. A prenup, a list of expectations, and a printed breakdown of my monthly allowance. I was 31, managing models for fashion shows. Decent money, decent life. She was 44, ran her family's company, and needed someone presentable beside her at galas. She said it plainly over dinner. I want a husband I can show off. Are you interested? I said yes. I'm not going to pretend I agonized over it. I grew up middle class, nothing broken. Normal house, normal jobs, normal everything. I got into modeling management in my late 20s and was good at it. But I wasn't rich. The allowance she was describing was more than my annual salary. So when a smart, composed, honestly stunning woman offered it across a restaurant table, I didn't play games. I asked for a week to think. I thought for 2 days, and I called her back. We signed everything. Got married 6 weeks later in her parents' garden. Her family was old money, the kind that doesn't talk about money, and they looked me over at first like furniture being considered for the foyer. But I was polite, presentable, and I didn't embarrass anyone. By the end of the weekend, her father shook my hand and said I had a good face. High praise, apparently. The first few months were exactly what I expected. Events, galas, charity dinners, good suits, bright smiles, small talk about things I only half understood. She was effortless at these things. She'd work a room in 20 minutes, know everyone's name, their company, their soft spot. I watched and learned. She never made me feel stupid for not knowing something. That was the first thing I actually liked about her. Back home, I had a trainer, a driver, a chef on staff. I should have been completely content. Instead, I was bored within 3 months. The shopping got old fast. There are only so many watches before the thrill flattens. I started wandering into the kitchen just to have somewhere to be. The chef didn't mind me hanging around. I started watching, then asking questions, then cooking beside him. He taught me stocks, sauces, how to break down a chicken, regional Italian, French technique. One week, we went deep on Moroccan spice blends, and I didn't leave the kitchen for 4 days. My wife came home to find me absorbed in a tagine situation and looked at me like I'd grown a second head. She sat at the kitchen island and watched. Then she asked if she could try it. I gave her a spoon. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "That's the best thing I've eaten in this house in 6 years." That became our arrangement. She worked, I cooked. She'd come home tired, and I'd have something on the stove, and we'd eat at the kitchen island instead of the formal dining room nobody actually liked. We started really talking. She told me about her day, the negotiations, the difficult people. I didn't have advice, but I listened and asked decent questions, and she seemed to need that more than she needed answers. I learned her mind, strategic and sometimes cold in business, completely different alone, dry humor, self-aware, a little lonely in ways she'd never say out loud. Then the pandemic hit, and she stopped traveling. Just home, every day, in the kitchen while I experimented, on the couch with a laptop while I watched cooking documentaries. We got a dog because she saw one at a neighbor's and looked at it too long. She started sleeping in on Saturdays. She was not a woman who slept in. That was how I knew something had shifted. One night after dinner, she looked at me and said, "You cook like you love me." I laughed. She didn't. She held my eyes for a second and then looked back down at her glass. I thought about it for days. I started noticing things. How she'd find me before she did anything else when she got home. How she laughed differently around me. Loose, real, sometimes embarrassingly loud. She left notes in the kitchen, handwritten. A compliment about dinner, an observation, once a terrible sketch of the dog that was completely charming. I kept them in a drawer. She took my hand at a gala about 2 years ago and it was different. Not for cameras. Just her hand finding mine in a crowded room because she wanted to. I didn't move for a second, making sure I was reading it right. I was. We never had a formal conversation about it. No sit down, no declaration. We just quietly became something real. The prenup is still in a drawer. Neither of us mentions it. Last month, Sunday morning, dog asleep on the floor, coffee going. She put her phone down and said, "I need to tell you something." She looked nervous, which she never looks. Hands around her mug. "I'm pregnant." Then she stood up and pressed her face into my shoulder and didn't say anything else for a long time. I stood there with a spatula in my hand, thinking about the contract, the allowance, the arrangement. I signed up to be decorative. I have no idea when I became her person. I just know the eggs are burning and her arms are around me, and I still feel like I'm in a dream.